Greetings of peace to all of you. We hope that the visuals on screen as well as the meditation conducted by the two yogis on stage earlier have provided the tone and atmosphere for tonight's gathering. And on behalf of Brahma Kumaris Philippines, we'd like to heartily welcome you to our program, Beyond Resilience, Sowing Seeds of Hope for the Future. It is often said that we are living in unprecedented and turbulent times where uncertainty looms larger than ever and the stakes for our future have never been higher. Every day brings with it new challenges, whether in our personal lives, at work, or in the world at large. But tonight is an opportunity to pause, to step back from the chaos, and to turn inward. And in this stillness, we can rediscover the inner peace and resilience that are at the core of who we truly are. It is also said that life is not about waiting for the storms to pass, but about learning to dance in the rain. In the same way, resilience is not just about surviving difficulties, it's about thriving despite them. It's about recognizing that within each of us is a reservoir of strength and wisdom that can guide us through any challenge we face. And as we begin tonight, I invite you to take a moment to ask yourself, what seeds of hope and resilience are you ready to plant tonight? And as we journey through this evening together with our esteemed speaker, let this question be your guide. Hold this thought close as we embark on the journey of inner discovery and wisdom. We are proudly celebrating our 40th anniversary this year, and what better way to mark this milestone than with the presence of a true spiritual powerhouse, Sister Jayanti herself. Instrumental in planting the seeds of the BK spiritual service in the Philippines, her return is fitting tribute to an enduring legacy she helped cultivate. Indeed, we are very fortunate to have with us a global leader in spiritual wisdom. Currently, the additional administrative head of the Brahma Kumaris and the regional director for Europe and the Middle East, she has dedicated her life to the spiritual empowerment of people across the world. Her voice of calm and spiritual clarity has resonated powerfully on global platforms, including the United Nations climate change conferences, where she has consistently advocated for the deep connection between spirituality and sustainability, between climate change and consciousness. Beyond her contributions to environmental dialogue, she's known for her tireless efforts to inspire resilience, peace, and hope in people from all walks of life. Tonight, she brings us her unique insights and spiritual strength to help us navigate challenges and sow seeds of hope for a better future. Dear friends, let us extend a warm and heartfelt welcome to Sister Jayanti.
Good evening and a warm greeting of peace. Om Shanti. I believe that most of you have been friends of the Brahma Kumaris for some time, or maybe there are some new friends here. So I'm sure that you recognize this term, Om Shanti. Om, I am, Shanti, peace. And I hope that already this evening you've been able to have a glimpse of that experience of inner peace. What has resilience got to do with inner peace? Absolutely everything. Why? Because the extent to which I'm stable and peaceful inside, to that extent, I'm able to have the power of resilience also. The state in which I am in today determines my future. It impacts everything at the present moment, but it also determines how things will evolve for me and everyone I'm in contact with for the future also. I'm also thinking about how the seeds of hope, how does that work with all of this? When there's a night, I need to have some light to be able to see the path forward. But beyond the night, there is the day. And I need to have, if I'm a child, I need to have help in understanding this. But if I'm an adult, then I have the understanding that the day is about to come, and the day will surely come. It's not a question. It's not a hope for the future, in fact. It's a guarantee. And so tonight I want you to leave with the absolute guarantee that what lies ahead of us is a very beautiful future. A future in which there is peace, love, truth, justice, harmony, and happiness for all. Does it seem an impossible dream? Who thinks it's possible? A few. Well, I hope that by the end of this evening, everyone will feel that, yes, it's definitely a possibility. If I think about who created the present conditions of the world, and probably you'll agree with me when I say that it's not God who created the present state of the world. So who was it? Was it all of us? Probably. Yes, you agree? It was all of us? I'll take it a step further. Not just all of us, but it was me. Can I accept that? It's a bit of a challenge to accept this huge responsibility, thinking that I am part of the creation of the world in its present condition. In some way or another, definitely I have played a part. Materialism, consumerism. How many shoes have I purchased that I didn't really need? Maybe it's not a few thousand, but maybe it's at least 2, 5, 6. How much food have I thrown away because I took too much? My eyes were bigger than my stomach, and I realized it only afterwards. And so in many, many different situations, definitely each one of us has contributed to all the conditions that we see around us now. But equally, if I accept responsibility for what's happening at the present time, I can also carry the responsibility for the future, which means that I can actually do something about the future. I don't need to fear or be anxious or worried about the future. Different places carry out different surveys and researches and ask people, how do you feel about the future? And traveling across the world, because we have centers all over the world, and so my good fortune has been to meet people across the world. What I found is that most of the surveys that are conducted, not by the Brahma Kumaris, but by other outside agencies, find that over 50% of people in most places are scared. They're very afraid of what the future holds. But I don't need to be worried or fearful. What I need to do is to take action today. And if I take action today in the right way, in the right consciousness, then I know that not just me, but together, all those who understand and believe, coming together with cooperation, with support for each other, together we're going to be able to create a better world for all of us. They have a slogan at the UN, leaving no one behind. And unfortunately, as of this moment, we're nowhere near that target. Why? Because we've been trying all sorts of external approaches. The problem is not an external one. The problem is an internal one. And when I say that, I mean the consciousness that I have and all of us together have, which has become a very materialistic consciousness. Can we change that and come back to a spiritual consciousness? The Philippines is a God-loving country. Some people talk about God-fearing people. No. What matters is being able to love God and being able to experience God's love for each one of us. And in that spirit of a God-loving people, I can say that if in my consciousness I have my spiritual identity, then on the basis of that, today I'll be able to have the power to be resilient, but tomorrow together we'll be able to create a better future for all, truly leaving no one behind. What do I mean when I say spiritual? In England, we don't use the word spiritual very often because it means all sorts of strange things to people. But here, I don't mind using this word. I know a few people in this gathering, mostly I don't know you, but within this gathering, because it is the Philippines, I'd like to explain this word spiritual. Each and every one of us is actually a spiritual being. We're human beings, and we know about the human form and the physiology connected with this. You know a lot about that, and if you want, we can find out a lot more detail about that. But in fact, the being that I am, the human is this body. The being that I am is the spirit within. And one of the things that we often say about today's world is that we've moved so far away from the being because we've become creatures of doing. And if somebody's sitting quietly, maybe in prayer, in reflection, people will say, don't sit there doing nothing, do something. So when we're just using our minds and our hearts, it's not even recognized as being doing something valuable. It's dismissed as doing nothing. So physical action is very much what everybody's looking at. But spirit means, yes, definitely, the spirit that I am, the light within that I am, is the one who's making this body function and is enabling everything to happen. And it's the spirit that I can come back to in terms of who I truly am. And in that state of awareness of who I am, then I'll be able to send out thoughts and vibrations of peace, of love, of truth, taking them from above, and then using those for myself, but also sharing these with the world around. And so this evening, let's look at this whole subject of spirit and what all that's about. In the awareness of spirit, yes, I know that I have this very precious vehicle through which to put my thoughts and feelings into action. But in the awareness of spirit, I'm connected deeply to the values that the spirit holds. Why is it that we look for peace outside, when in fact the reality is that peace does not exist out there? Peace exists inside, within my inner world. It's not my hand and my feet that are asking for peace. It's the being inside that is asking for peace. Again, we think that love might be something that you can buy and sell and get and give and exchange on an external level. But it's actually something that's within the inner being. And so all the things that we are striving for, looking outside, looking out there, in fact, they're not out there. They're actually within the inner being itself. And when I come to understand this, there's a tremendous power that I'm able to have that is carrying me above all the things that happen on the external level down here. In resilience, you're stretched to capacity and be a little bit beyond capacity. But within that crisis, although you're stretched, yet you're able to maintain a stable state that brings you back to your norm. And when there isn't resilience, you get stretched, and you get stretched to a state where it's difficult to come back to the norm. The rubber band, stretch it, and it has a certain capacity. And it'll then come back when it doesn't need to be stretched. But what's happening at the current time, for many, many of us, is that we come to a state of not just being stretched, but becoming stressed. And once you reach a certain level of stress, and if stress continues beyond that, it's like the rubber band that then breaks. And so we get to a state of burnout. Do you know when the word stress started to be applied to human minds? It was never a condition of the human mind, it was a condition of metal. And engineers would calculate how much stress the metal that they're using for any type of construction was able to carry. In my first or second year of physics at school, age 12, 13, we were asked to do experiments. And the experiment was a metal wire, and you would test what was the resilience of that, what was its capacity, by putting little weights on it. And you take off the weights and the metal is fine. But there comes a point when you've added so many weights that now the metal is stretched beyond capacity, and the stress factor is such that it comes to breaking point. It's not going to return to the norm. And it was only after the Second World War that they started using this term stress for human minds, because the pressures were growing, and today they've reached an extreme point. And so the resilience I need, how am I going to be able to get that? The conditions of the world are such today that it's unlikely that they'll get better in the next year or two, or maybe few. Beyond that, yes, definitely a world of truth and justice. But until then, the conditions of the world are going to get worse and worse, probably. which means that if I'm expecting things to change and get better, are you expecting the traffic in Manila to get better? Maybe there are fantastic, amazing plans that the government has, or that scientists and technology is coming together with some amazing vehicles that we don't have traffic jams. But how do I change that? Well, if I accept that I can't change it, fine. But then I need to increase my own resilience capacity to be able to manage it so that I don't get stressed and I don't get to a state of burnout. So immediately now, I'm able to use the power of the mind to reach such a state that the traffic is there. It's the same traffic as it was yesterday and the day before and the day before. But today, I've changed something within my consciousness inside, and the traffic doesn't bother me anymore. Yes, I know I have to allow enough time. We might get flying vehicles that suddenly rise up above the traffic and carry me to my destination. But what about everybody else? Are they also going to do the same? Then the air will be full of a lot of traffic. But I need to increase my resilience capacity. And that means I need power from another source. And this is what meditation is about. Coming to the awareness of the inner being, tuning my mind to the right frequency so that I can catch the power from above. There is a being who is the supreme. There is a being that you can call by whatever name is comfortable for you. Whether it's God, the Almighty, the Supreme, the Divine, whatever term you choose to use. But there is one soul who, out of all the billions of souls in the world, is the one who is the Supreme. Not two of them, not three of them, but the Supreme. And that Supreme is the one that each one of us can connect with, just simply through tuning our mind to the awareness of the inner being. And in that connection, I'm able to draw the power of peace, the power of love, the power of truth, the power of purity, the power of joy. These are the ingredients that can help me become resilient. Sometimes I just need to be able to be calm. Sometimes I need to find meaning within a situation that's happening. Sometimes I can find joy, and instead of frowning, I can smile. Sometimes I need to be able to laugh at myself. So whichever power it is I need, the power of the Almighty is such that it includes all of these different qualities. God's power isn't to raise somebody from the dead or to make all the leaves move in the breeze or for the flowers to come at the right time and season. That's the power of nature. And the things that we've done have been to create such a state of imbalance within nature that the flowers don't seem to open at the right time. I know here you have a rainy season, but that's maybe all year, is it? And then you have a warm season, but that's also almost all the year round. But in India, we have seasons very distinctly different. And in London, definitely, we have the 4 seasons. In Oxford, at the retreat centre that we have there, so often in March there's been warm weather, and in April there's snow. it happens many, many times. And the blossom comes out in March, thinking that it's spring. And then when the snow comes, the flowers shrivel, and the farmers get affected, people get affected. But it's a state of affairs in which everything is out of sync. Why? It seems a very far shot to say, well, it's the mind, our minds that have made this happen. And I agree with that. It is a long shot. But in fact, they say every time you move your finger, you move the stars. There's a huge, huge impact, not only of our physical actions, but also of our thoughts and our vibrations. And we don't realize how powerful our thoughts are and how things happen, not only because of our actions, but even through the power of our thoughts. Healing can happen through the power of our thoughts. Good things can happen with the power of our thoughts. But also maybe things that are not so good are happening also because of the power of our thoughts. I remember somebody as they were a year ago. Maybe they'd got angry about something at that time, and I approach them now with that memory and am expecting them to say something which is not very pleasant. And that's exactly what happens. Maybe they had changed in the last year, but the vibrations that I'm sending out are triggering the same memory in them. And that's what I see happening. So many things happen through thoughts, definitely through words, actions. But everything begins in the mind. And so just coming back to this awareness of what's happening in the mind, can I make sure that my mind stays up above, being able to turn whatever is negative into something which is positive, but even better than positive? Can I have such powerful, pure thoughts that negativity is not just erased in me, but I'm contributing with others to creating an atmosphere which is powerful, that can impact the world? The power of resilience is firstly having that power to be able to withstand the effect of negativity on me, but further, to be able to have such a capacity that together we can change things around. And so, if you've seen the power of love at work, the power of peace at work, then you know that it's possible. Can love heal? Definitely. I've seen cases where, and not just me myself, but there's a lot of studies on this done, especially in the Netherlands some years ago. And they found that when there was cancer, cancer could be reversed just simply through giving a child. This child had leukemia, and the child was given a pet. And the friendship between the child and the pet became very, very intense. But it just gave the child literally new life. The cancer was reversed. True story. But also the power of peace. I was in a car accident some years ago on a road that was a straightforward road, but quite narrow, enough for 2 vehicles to pass, not for 3. And it was a road in those days, between Haridwar and Delhi. And we'd left early in the morning, and by around 6 o'clock in the morning, the dawn had broken and you could just see the light, just a dim light. You couldn't see it very clearly, but a dim light. And there was this old man, and there was a stretch of the road where it was very, very straight, and I was in the middle of the back seat, and looking straight ahead, I could see this old man in the distance who was carrying a stick, and he didn't know whether to cross or to wait. He was dithering. And after a few minutes, and the car wasn't traveling at very high speed, but there was an impact, and the car moved from hitting the man to hitting a tree. No, first it moved to hitting a rickshaw, one of those tricycles that you have here also, but one of those, and then ricocheted and hit the tree on the other side. And it came to a standstill. I got out of the car and I looked for the old man, and I couldn't see. And then I saw this big crowd that had gathered. No one in the car was hurt. Our senior teacher who was with us had hit her head on the bench. It was those old cars that didn't have separate seats in the front, but like a bench seat. And she'd hit her head on the back of that, and others were looking after her. So I was looking around by now for the driver. And this road had been totally deserted. There's one old man there, nobody else at all. And at that point, I was hearing a big, big noise. And what there was a big gathering of men who had gathered around. And the noise was coming from there. The sound of the accident or the vibrations had just collected a lot of people. And I walked into the middle of the gathering. They parted to give me space. I was much younger, but I still had my white sari, so meant that maybe it was just a surprise of a woman, a young woman, walking into that gathering, and they parted and gave me space. And in the middle of that was this driver. And they had just started to beat him. And they were saying things like, "You rich people come into our places and you take away our people," and things like this. I could scarcely understand Hindi, and I could speak very little Hindi at that point. But I just somehow stretched my arms out and said, "Wait, wait, the police are coming." I didn't know if they were coming. I didn't know if there were phones that had been possible and a call had been made or not, but just an instinct working. But they were so surprised that they stood back and just became silent. And that pause lasted for just a few minutes. But thankfully, the few minutes was enough for the police to arrive, and they took the driver away. And I think that probably saved his life. Those few minutes and the power of peace, and just asking them to wait for a few minutes made a difference. And I know that it wasn't me or my power of peace, but I know that it was that pure thought and God's peace that descended on the gathering at that moment. So I know that the power of peace works, the power of love works, and I'm sure that many of those within this gathering must have had experiences that are very similar or even more dramatic than anything I've shared now. So resilience means absolutely having that conviction that everything can be fine, everything's going to turn out okay, not giving way to fear, and certainly not giving way to worry. A question: has worry ever changed a situation? Probably it's made things worse. I'm worried that my body is unwell, what's going to happen? Well, whatever it is, my worry is going to exacerbate the illness. It's not going to help the illness. And if there are loved ones around me who say, well, we're worried about you, we want you to get well. Well, if they had good wishes for me and God's remembrance, maybe that would help me get well. Their worry doesn't help me get well either. But what we can do is simply be absolutely sure that what we are doing today is filled with God's light and God's love. And if we can do that, then we know that the seeds, not only of hope for the future, but the seeds of pure thoughts, seeds of good actions have been planted, and we know that the future is going to be fine. If today is a result of whatever we've done yesterday, which I think it is, would you agree? Today is the direct outcome of what I did before. Same thing. If I pay attention to what it is I do today and make sure that everything is right, then surely that right awareness and action is going to bring a world that is right also. It's definitely going to bring that which is right for me. The right seeds sown are going to be able to bring me a good life. But all together, we can do this and make that happen. And so the important thing is to being aware of how precious time is. Use time in a constructive way, in a creative way, in the best way possible so that I am doing the right thing for the future. Let's have a few moments of silence, and I'll share my own thoughts in silence, in meditation, and I invite you to join me in sending out those thoughts to the world out there. I reflect on the things that I've been hearing about, and I go inside and going deeper and deeper within, letting the world outside stay where it belongs, out there, exploring the world within. I come to that space which is sacred, my own inner space, and in this awareness, I find peace and stillness within. And in this place of peace, I can feel the presence of the divine. The unconditional love, the peace that is powerful and unbroken. The being of truth, the being of bliss, the being of purity. Not only am I surrounded by these qualities, but I'm absorbing all these within myself. And in this awareness, I recognize that from the source, from the divine, all these qualities are reaching out into the world. These qualities are for the whole of humanity, the entire human family. These qualities reach out to all forms of life, all living creatures. And these qualities reach out even to the elements of nature. God's light, God's love surrounds the planet and all those on it. Om Shanti. Thank you for joining in this experiment. What happens is that when we meditate, even for a few minutes each day, having connected with those qualities which are the qualities of the divine and which are also our original qualities, be able to make sure that the compass stays true north the whole day, so that it is this that guides us through the day. And the power of resilience to be able to withstand the pressures of all the things that are going on around us is increased dramatically. Where yesterday, without meditation, I would have perhaps felt weak and helpless, or maybe I would have reacted with anger. You heard the testimonials of many of the people who practice meditation and the things that they shared. Well, all of that is the reality of experience. Being able not just to survive, but to thrive in whatever it is that's going on. But knowing absolutely that every seed that is good, that is planted, is going to bring a return. It might not be as quickly as we would like it to be, but it will happen for sure. But also, every seed that is planted, not just through my thoughts, but my words and my actions, brings immediate fruit even now. And so share a word of encouragement, a word of hope with another, and their good wishes reach you and support you in whatever endeavor it is you make. If I have an act of kindness, do you know how that impacts the world? Every act of kindness impacts at least 125 others around us. This was demonstrated in an experiment in Harvard. I won't go into the detail of the story. And I'm seeing that my dear brother is here giving me a signal. And so let me just pause here and see where we go further.
Much appreciation for your profound and enlightening words, Sister Jayanti. And thank you for leading us into that meditation experience. Thank you also for reminding us that we are human beings and not human doings, and that through meditation we can be able to actually rediscover that inner being and set our minds the right frequency to connect to that higher being so that we can be able to be more resilient.